Hi, my name is Jelle and I'm a professional mental performance trainer. In this video I want to take a look at a Netflix series that I really enjoyed watching in the last few weeks, which is Playbook, A Coach's Rules to Life. If you haven't seen the show, it's kind of like mini documentaries on 5 different coaches of the highest level from different sports, different backgrounds and different countries. And they each give a few rules that they use in coaching and explain why and what the reasoning behind that is and how people could use those rules in their everyday life to be more successful. So let's dive into some of my favorite rules of these coaches. The first rule that really spoke to me as a mental performance trainer came from basketball coach Doc Rivers, and he said, pressure is a privilege. And I really like that because it speaks to something that I work with athletes about a lot. So pressure to me is something that as an athlete, you are allowed to feel. What I love about sports, what makes sports unique to me, is that it's a scenario, it's a situation in which we're allowed to experience a whole bunch of different emotions, both positive and negative, where we're allowed to step onto a court and make the life of our opponents as hard as possible and push them to the limit. So pressure is a privilege spoke to me because there's so many situations in everyday life where we aren't allowed to either experience pressure or where we aren't able to experience pressure or to exert pressure on other people. And I think that if you have situations in which you can feel pressure, that is a situation that you should treasure, and you should, face it head first. Just go at it, because you will not always be able to feel pressure. And it's such a direct emotion to the situation that it helps you concentrate, it helps you be motivated. In the end, if you overcome the pressure and you are successful, you'll feel such an amount of accomplishment. A second rule, as they are called in the series, that really stuck with me came from US women's soccer coach Jill Ellis. And she said, risk is opportunity. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand about sports or about athletes. Athletes have a unique ability to take risks. And that doesn't mean that they're reckless or that they are, they don't weigh their options or try to mitigate the risk as much as possible. But when you have two teams standing across a pitch or a court or a field or whatever it is, if nobody's going to take a risk, nobody's going to win. In order to win at anything you do, you have to put yourself out there. You have to put your neck on the line and take risks. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean that you can just be reckless and do whatever you want and, just throw the kitchen sink at it and see what happens. You have to take calculated risks. But taking a risk, every time you are able to take a risk, you have an opportunity to succeed. So if you're, in your everyday life, you're coming to a situation where you're questioning whether you should take a risk or not, ask yourself, if I don't take this risk, am I losing out on an opportunity to reach something that I really want to reach? If you have a new job that you want, you have to take a risk with the interviewing process. You have to try and present yourself in the best way. If, you're trying to reach a goal, you have to take a risk of failing. In the end, I think your ability to accept the fact that you have to take risks and accept the fact that that might lead to failure, might lead to negative emotions, is going to be a determining factor in whether you're going to be able to be successful. The third rule that really spoke to me came from legendary soccer coach Jose Mourinho. I've done some other things in videos about him before. I find him a fascinating character. And he said, don't coach the player, coach the team. And this is very specific to professional sports. He framed it as, when these players get to the professional level, they know how to play soccer. I don't have to teach them how to kick a ball. That's basically what he was saying. So when I coach a professional team, I focus on creating some kind of team cohesion, an idea of what the team is trying to do, how they should play together, what the tactics are, etc. And I really like that because it talks about what I call the difference between learning mode and performing mode. And this applies, in my opinion, to everyone, not only professional athletes. Our brain has two different modes, so to say. When we're in learning mode, the only thing that we are trying to do, the only thing that our brain is trying to do, is to acquire some kind of new knowledge or skill or execution or something like that. Right? So if I'm learning a language, if I'm in learning mode, I'm doing things like grammar, I'm learning new vocabulary, I'm doing all those kinds of things. On the other hand, when we are in performing mode, the only thing our brain is trying to do is maximize performance with the things we already know. In the example of the language, a new second language or third or fourth, how many languages you know, the only thing your brain is trying to do is have the best conversation possible with the things you already know. You're not trying in that moment to learn new words, or you're not trying to maybe do all the grammar correctly. The only thing you're trying to do is, what do I already know and how can I use that knowledge to have a conversation with somebody? And when we relate that to sport, it makes a lot of sense. When we are in game situations, when we are in competition, our brains are in performing mode. And in that moment, a coach is unable to teach like individual skills, basic techniques, and stuff like that to an athlete. So in a competition, if a coach says, bend your knee more while you're kicking the ball, the player's not even going to register that. There's no way that he or she is able to execute that because that athlete is in performing mode. So Mourinho frames it as in, these are professional athletes. I don't need to teach them how to play soccer, but I find it hard to believe that at practice, they wouldn't work on these basic technical skills and these athletes wouldn't continue to refine their skill set. But when you get to the game, when you get to the performing mode of the brain, the only thing you can do is coach everything around it. Mindset, energy, team, the way the team works together, tactics, all those things. So that phrase of I don't coach the player, I coach the team, I think has more to do with understanding that we have a learning and a performing mode and respecting that surrounding competition. The next rule is a rule that I guess made me sit up straight the most while watching this series, because it's the first rule, and it's about halfway through the entire series, that I don't agree with. Up until this moment, I'm watching, I'm like, wow, these coaches, they really know what they're talking about. They really know, really understand how to get people engaged, to get them working together, how to create team, how to create the right mindset. And then I get to the episode about Patrick Mouratoglou, the famous tennis coach. And this is a fascinating man. He says so many good things, and he cares about his athletes. He creates personal relationships, and all of that is really strong. It's all the stuff that you should be doing in order to create the right environment for athletes to perform. And then he starts talking about a time that he lied to Serena Williams in order to get her to change her mindset. And the rule he attached to that was, a good lie can become the truth. And the example he gave was Serena wasn't playing well at a particular Wimbledon tournament, and he lied to her about some statistic to make her believe that she was actually doing well, and then after that she actually performed really well in that particular part of the game. And his reasoning was, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. If it changed the mindset of the athlete, I have achieved my goal. Now, the big problem I have with this is the long-term effects of a strategy like this. Sure, I can really understand that if an athlete is thinking, oh, I'm not doing well, and you tell them, you just straight up lie to them, say, no, you're doing great, here's the stats, they were made up stats, here's the stats to show it, etc. That the athlete will go, oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize. And then it might change. But what happens the next time you say something like that? What happens the next time when it's true that the statistics are like that the player is playing well, and you say, no, you're doing great? Is that athlete going to believe what you're saying? Is that athlete going to doubt whether this is another lie or not? Is that athlete just going to simply disregard what you're saying and never listen to anything that is true anymore? The long-term effects is that an action like this can really, really damage a relationship between a coach and an athlete. Right? Honesty and trust is really important when you're working with athletes, or when you're working with anyone. Because you need to know that if a coach gives you feedback, if a coach steps in to correct something or to, help you, you need to know that it's based on true facts. If an athlete starts doubting what you're saying is true or not, you completely lost your ability to intervene in their mindset. Maybe you don't have to do this very often, and maybe you can explain afterwards why you did it. But I would be extremely careful using a technique like this, because if there's any part of the athlete that starts to doubt what you're saying, the whole relationship is gone. On the other hand, Patrick Mouratoglou also says a lot of good things. Like I said, this was probably my favorite episode of the whole series. Another example of a rule that he gave was let them know that they're not alone. And this was regarding an example, a story of really, really high-level players throwing games or tanking games, like he called it, where if things don't go the way they want, they would just give up. Maybe the most famous examples of this kind of behavior comes from Australian young tennis star Nick Kyrgios, who has on multiple occasions thrown games and has been fined for it and had to do re-education camps and whatever he had to do in order to correct his behavior. But what Patrick is saying is that the reason these athletes do it is because they are labeled as talents. They are labeled as the next big thing. And when somebody is repeatedly told that they are the next big thing, that they are the talent, that they are the next star, they start to believe it and they start to internalize it. So part of their identity becomes that they are a talent. And when somebody who, as part of their identity, has talent, is playing somebody who is not regarded as a talent, and they're losing, that identity is being attacked. If you lose to somebody who isn't a talent, as somebody who's supposed to be talented, you lose that part of your identity. So as a result, these players tank the game, because then they can say, well, I didn't even try. That's why I lost. I lost because I didn't try, not because, I'm not good enough or the other player was better or whatever. And his solution was really good, because he just sat down and the only thing he said was, I'm here for you. You're not alone. And the athlete in the example responded saying, like, whoa, I expected that you were going to be like really mad at me or something like that. And he said, no, I understand what's happening, but let's work on trying to fix that. So I really like that one. So if there's one episode you should watch, definitely watch the one about Patrick Mouratoglou. The last rule that really spoke to me came from basketball coach Dawn Staley. And she said, growth takes place outside of the comfort zone. We talk about the comfort zone, quite a bit. I think everyone understands where their comfort zone is and what it's like. And then people say, like, you should step out of your comfort zone. But that's hard because, well, guess what? everything outside of your comfort zone is uncomfortable. But there's really a large truth to saying that you cannot grow if you stay within your comfort zone. To me, the comfort zone is everything I know and I can do. If I never try things that I'm unable to do, I can never expand my comfort zone. So what I need to be able to do is take that step outside the little line that I'm okay with to see what's, on the other side. And this might be easy, right? You can just say, oh, just try things, but your body resists stepping out of your comfort zone because the human brain likes being comfortable. It's one of our favorite things to do, to be comfortable. So in order to step outside of our comfort zone, we need to take small steps. We need to get ourselves ready to do it. Things you can do is like plan ahead, right? On this day, I'm going to do that. Go with people. Use other people to step out of your comfort zone. In order to take steps, in order to expand your comfort zone, you need to take steps outside of it. So if you want to be more comfortable in more situations, you got to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. These were just some of my thoughts on the rules that were mentioned in the series. There's a lot more, and a lot of them are really great. I really highly suggest this series for people who are interested in how teams work, how groups work, how individuals work from a mental perspective, and because I think sports can really teach a lot about those topics. If you did like this video, please leave a like, comment on what your favorite rule was in the series, or if you don't agree or do agree with some of the things I said in this video. And if you're really enjoying the videos, please subscribe to the channel as well. And I hope to see everyone again in the next video.